is no redress in the act of killing your own citizens.
Because they keep doubling down.
They knew this was a plan.
90% of it, though, is about what you can actually do.
This shot will give you life, and if you don't, it gives you death. And this is the point. People who don't have God in their lives are afraid to die. And so, of course, they're going to run.
And even stranger, they're also afraid to live.
Hello, Todd. How are you?
Happy Monday, Jamie. Happy to be here. It's a beautiful day. We get to have my pal Ed Haugland on, former CIA analyst, amongst other things. He's going to share some thoughts about what's going on in Iran, give us some perspective, which I think we all desperately need. How are you?
I'm good, and I'm really excited to hear what he has to say. I'm really excited for this.
Yeah, Ed's a wealth of knowledge, information, and an author, and I hope people will read what he's got to say and hear what he's got to say, actually. Man, to talk about adding clarity to the situation. So we're going to chat with Ed about that today, but I'm going to set the stage with the monologue.
Sounds good. I'll see you in a bit.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamie. And to everybody else, yourselves included, those of you watching this, as always, thank you for sharing, getting word around. If at all possible, see if you can get people to subscribe, yourselves included. It's funny how tortured we are on all things meta. It's pretty hard to find this or anything else related to the subject matter on YouTube or any other apparatus, Google apparatus. So anyway, the way we defeat that in this information war is by bypassing it. So you sending it around to your friends, letting them see it on CloutHub in particular, Rumble, other places helps, because that's the means by which we defeat the globalists in their plans to enslave us, eradicate us, use us, dispose of us, things of that nature. So we're going to get a little of a history lesson from Ed today, but I want to set the groundwork with the whole paradigm, which is probably obvious to a lot of you, but we're going to do it anyway. Today's data center bit, the bubble is about to burst. We spent all this money on data centers, and there's 800 some of them in Texas. And I mean, if you look across the nation, there are data centers freaking everywhere. How? Why? How much money went into this? How quickly this went into this? Even got an executive order. What is this really about? Well, this lady is about to blow it all apart because the Chinese that made a little box that does it all. What a data center is supposed to do, this little thing does, and something that can fit in your hand. Watch this.
Now, I would say this is pretty beautiful. Do you guys agree? So let me tell you what it is. This is the smallest AI development system in the world, capable of running models with up to 200 billion parameters locally, not connected to anything. It's powered by our highest-end Ryzen AI Max processor with 128 gigabytes of high-speed unified memory that is shared by CPU, GPU, and NPU. This architecture accelerates system performance and makes it possible to efficiently run large AI models on a compact desktop PC that fits in your hand. Thank you.
All right, so if that's the case, that can do everything one of these great giant data centers does, that uses up all the water, the electricity, huge amounts of land, and even the parts around it you can't use. Why? Because there's this horrible hum of frequency that makes everybody sick, animals and plants included. Then what is it really about? Well, look at this next video. I think it might give you a clue. Land grabs, hey?
This. So these days, Bill Gates is coming for farmland, you know, which, and by the way, his nefarious Microsoft entity is coming for, frankly, the rest of the land for their data centers, you know. So this is not, you know, you knew it was only going to be a matter of time. When these guys got a bunch of money, you knew it was only going to, you know, they were going to make a calculation. Well, you know, these people. We've been talking about world government for a long time. We want to thin the herd. We've got money. We can do whatever we want. Why don't we just buy up all the farmland? You know, like, they can't defeat us if they're not eating, right? So why don't we just starve them out by buying all the farmland and either not producing food with the land or producing the kind of food that's poisonous, like genetically modified organisms and things like that. So, whether Bill Gates wants your land to grow GMO tomatoes or he wants it to put a data center there, it's not for you.
Yeah, it's not for you. He's got that exactly right. You might remember it was only a couple of years ago when the chairman of Nestle, one of the biggest companies in the world, stood up at the World Economic Forum and said, yeah, water is not a right. It's not a human right. It's a commodity. You have to buy it. So what else happens? These giant data centers use up all the water. Whereas that lady just showed us something fitting in your hand. I didn't see any water attached to it, no hoses, no submersion, no nothing, a minimum of electricity. So what's that all about? Well, making water unusable to you. How about the next one, Jamie?
The Silicon Valley elites that the lobby is closed for renovations. Look, we've seen the patents, many of them for free energy. Why all the mess with the water and the drains and the talk about the future with humans against AI because of power resources? Can't we now just pull water out of the air, get a lot more water underground and create free energy with these patents? What is the problem? We need to concentrate on these things versus fighting with each other over resources that we already have if we put our heads together, right? Well, the answer is a messy mix of physics, profit, and the valley of death. That's the place good inventions go to die. This is the million-dollar question. If we have the patents for free energy and the tech to pull water from air, why are we still fighting over the same dusty pipes and tired power lines? So let's look at this objectively. There are thousands of patents for things like zero-point energy, cold fusion, and high-efficiency electromagnetic motors, like the ones Nikola Tesla dreamed up. The problem is a patent is just a legal document. It's not a working product.
Yeah, but that legal document reserves onto the owners the rights to use it for a period of time. And if it's a government, it's forever. Their patent rights don't expire. So let me see if I got the paradigm right. We're losing our land. We're losing our water. We're losing our electricity. We're losing our air, chemtrails, right? What does all that mean? Oh, well, there's other resources yet to go. How about information? Here's the Prime Minister of England cutting off access to information for your kids. How far is it before he cuts off access for you?
Every parent wants the best for their kids. And that's what being a parent means. And for me, for my two kids, all I've ever wanted, hand on heart, is for them to be safe and for them to be happy. And the rest is up to them. But you know, I think back to when I was growing up, and I have to say, I think we had it easier. These days, kids have to find their feet in a world that changes so quickly, where technology intrudes into every area of their lives. And we know that harms them. The response from parents in the consultation has been absolutely clear. Thousands of parents say their children are addicted to social media. It can leave them trapped in a cycle of endless scrolling that displaces play, sleep, and time with the family. It can harm their mental health. And frankly, parents need our support on this. That is why today, the government has decided to ban social media access for children under 16.
Okay. So you don't want people age 16 and under to understand the true paradigm, right? No access to information. That's the plan. I love the predicate, right? This is all about you, safety for you, because it's always about safety for you. And it's also about dependence. So how about they take away all of those things, information, food, water, you name it. They're taking it away, but they're going to replace it with universal basic income so that you become fully dependent on the government. Canada, as usual, is leading the way and banning speech while they're at it. You can play that last bit there, UBI. Thank you.
Qualify, but probably not. Oh, Lord, they make it tough. universal basic income in Canada, it's actually closer to passing than I realized. So I have an ideological split here because people need money. People need rent. They can't afford rent and groceries. Yet half the population is allergic to effort. And now we're going to pay them to nap. And we have a national obesity crisis as it is. And if we do this for 5-10 years, it's going to look like baby elephant migration.
Baby elephant migration. It just makes me laugh. Sorry. And if that isn't enough, right? Here's the stick and the carrot. The carrot is universal basic income. Here's the stick. This is happening in the United States of America when the FBI shows up at your door and says, "Hey, you can't say those things." I thought that was only the United Kingdom, but this is an example. This happened in the United States. Watch, it'll blow your mind.
Hi, how you doing? Just to let you know that if you lie to an FBI agent, you get charged with that. I know you are. Let's see, Craig Britton, correct?
What's this about?
Okay. Comments that you post online.
Which comments?
I'll discuss it if you stop recording.
I'm not going to stop recording.
Okay. Then we'll come back another day and talk to you. Okay?
You should not come back. You don't have a warrant.
No, I don't.
You have no probable cause to do this.
No,
you're haranguing and harassing me.
I'm having
What is your name, sir?
You gave my name already. I told you who I was.
Please repeat your name.
I told you once
Please.
before.
Why are you evading? Why are you going to run away from my property? What are you doing?
Wow, that's really something. And that's exactly how you should handle it, right? No warrant, go away, because that's what the law requires. And unless we stand up and assert our rights, they are waived. So the good on you, dude. I don't know who you are. The point to this is to show you this was a plan and this is being implemented. So if you go to this attachment, we're going to put it in the show notes. This is the OECD, Organization for Economic and Cooperative Development, otherwise known as what? The One World Government. It's already in existence. They've already written laws that every country effectively is bound by, and they're telling us how AI is going to control us. The document will blow your mind. Please read it in your free time. And the short answer is this: AI governance. How AI is going to govern the C40 cities that you are going to be forced into living in, unless we stop them. And we stop them how? By knowing the truth and sharing it so that people can stand together. And with that said, Ed Haugland, CIA analyst, amongst other things, notable author, The Cognitive War. You are here today to shed light on current situations, but I'd love to see if you can somehow or other weave it into what it is we're seeing. One world government and the depopulation agenda, amongst other things. If you don't mind, people who don't know yet, share a little bit of background. You've been on here before, I think twice or three times, but we always get new viewers.
Well, thanks, Todd. Thanks for having me. My background, I spent 40 years in the government and private sector supporting national security, 10 years at CIA, at both as Air Force and as a civilian staff member. ODNI, Department of State, Department of Energy, United States Air Force. Like I said, I got out as a captain. I was a Soviet studies expert, did INF treaty inspections in the former Soviet Union. I helped stand up the NGA. I was also over at DIA. And so I've been at most of the big five agencies and then also a number of different departments, as I've said. ODNI, I spent a decade there, and then I also spent a fair amount of time at the United States Army G2 as a senior advisor as well. So I've been around the block in the community. As to the tie-in for what you're just talking about, the left is very adept at putting together a long-term strategy and a long-term plan, and very methodical in executing it to seize power. And it's all about power. And when we talk about Orion today, that's what I'm going to talk about, is not just what's happening now, but going to some history. And we're repeating history, but it ties into what you're saying, is these are tried and true tactics. And as I talk today, I want the audience to consider what I'm saying and consider what's going on inside the United States today with the Democratic Party. And you see a lot of parallels there. And that's why I laid out in my book, The Cognitive Warfare, Why We're Losing, How We Can Win. I laid a lot of this out in detail. Last thing I mentioned, Todd, is you had Starmer on there. And my theory of the information equilibrium, which is in the book, really proffers that if you're leaning towards control and manipulation of information, look at Iran, China, Soviet Union stuff. Okay, now in Britain, you are moving towards tyranny and despotism. If you open the gates for information and enable that information sharing and flow, okay, you enhance the potential for democracy and freedom. But this is what the left has always done. You see it here today in America with their media, our mainstream media, the fake news. And you see it in England and every place else. It's all about controlling the narrative, controlling the information, and then dumbing down the population. And so we'll get into that some more today.
It's a formula. And I'm so happy you said that, because it's been done over and over. And I think part of getting through your book and your knowledge is to equip us with the means by which we defend against it, because somehow we've persisted. Somehow the birth of our nation happened. And it seems to me that we find ourselves abdicating our decision making to these freaks who seek nothing other than to subjugate us. So I think Iran is such a really good example, because it was also one of those false paradigms. Some people call them false flags, or Hegelian dialectic, and dating back to the revolution, which a lot of us would remember, because we're just old enough to do that, but some may not. And I'd love for you to walk us through this, how that paradigm happened, including the MEK, because they just kind of flip or flop in furtherance of their seeking power, right? Is that right?
Yes. And so in the history, I'll talk about here in a little bit, the 1958 UK and US coup against in Iran, which took the constitutional monarchy and elevated it more into power. And the reasons for that coup. But the means that Khomeini used to consolidate power in that revolution that you talked about is very similar to every other revolution we've seen throughout history. So the liberates and moderates, everyone sort of folds into the revolution, right? The liberals and the moderates are quickly then pushed out. Leftists and Marxists, they're initially tolerated and then they're executed. Mass executions happen for everybody. So one thing that people never learn about revolutions is revolutions eat their young. All right.
Yes, they do.
There's only one element of the revolution that can come out on top, and it usually ain't you.
No, the useful idiots are done away with. And it's interesting also, those useful idiots seem to me that they're pre-picked, like Ahmadinejad. Did I pronounce his name right? Wasn't he a leader in the kidnappings?
Yeah. Ahmadinejad, yeah, and also, but what you also see there is in all these different revolutions, and what I talk about the Democrat blood revolution that's happening now in America, is you see the charisma aspect of the leader, right, and the religious authority. Okay? What do you see now with Mamdani, with AOC, and others, right? All right. You see the control of the narrative, so they control the narrative with Graham Plattner up in Maine, right? And crisis exploitation. So they try to exploit every crisis that they themselves create. And then there's the coercion apparatus, right? We've seen that here in the United States with the weaponization of national intelligence and national security against the citizens and stuff. So, Iran has a long history, but what people may also not understand, I'll get into in here in a second, is that they have been fairly moderate over history, very secular over history. And one thing they've pushed back on several times throughout the last 1,000 years is they despised autocracy. They despised absolute power, and they wanted more of a type of democracies and freedoms. And so there's an anathema there that's going on in Persia and Iran right now, and it's playing out in this final negotiations with Trump as well.
Man, so that's fascinating, because I have to tell you, my experience with Persian people is that they're brilliant, and you could be in a room with them, you might not even know that they are Persian, because they share a lot of the same ideals we do. And prior to their revolution, 1980 or so, they were allies. They're flying around American military equipment. They were actually folded into Western society, so to speak. Very secular. Women had rights. And then along comes this, dragon, the communist flair to it. And I think it's important for people to understand that religion was used as a feature of this for the purposes of longevity and supremacy. Hey, you can't fault me. I'm the religious leader. I speak the word of God on behalf of him. Do I have that one right?
Yes. And so you see the same thing happening here in America today, right? So the racist term has sort of died out. They call everyone racist. Okay, if you twinkle your eye, you're racist. Okay, but so what they're replacing it with? They're replacing it with religion and Islamophobia. Okay, radical Islam. They're replacing it with radical Islam and saying if you're against it, you're now Islamophobia, and all these other things because they want to hide under this veil of religion. At the same time, they attack religion, Christianity, right? Vehemently attack it. And so, but that's not the history of Iran. And so, if you let me, I'll go into a little bit of history. Okay. So, people, there's a three millennium culture, 3,000-year-old culture. Okay, and so I won't go back through the whole 3,000 years, but in 550 BC, Cyrus the Great founded the Achaemenid Empire. Okay, it stretched from the Balkans and Egypt to Central Asia and India. It was known for administrative innovation, roads, religious tolerance, and they freed the Jews from Babylon. Right now, that empire clashed with the Greeks in the Battle of Marathon and Salamis, and it fell to Alexander the Great, the guy with big elephants, in 330 BC. But in the Islamic era, the Arab then conquest took place in the 7th century, and they fell to the Muslim armies around 635, 651 BC. And Iran became successive Islamic caliphates for a number of different years. Now, from 1501 to 1736, Shah Ismail established Shia Islam as a state religion and distinguished themselves from its Sunni neighbors. So Shia and Sunnis, you always have this conflict.
Still fighting.
Still fighting today. Later dynasties faced European, Russian, and British interference. Okay, so much like every part of the colonial world, every part of the developing world over this different history in Europe and stuff, you can see there's a lot of parallels there. Now you move into the modern area. So they had a constitutional revolution in 1905 to 1911. Okay, this was the constitutional revolution. It was Iran's first major modern political upheaval. It was a fight for law over autocracy, not against religion. So they maintained an Islamic state, okay, but they were tired of the autocracy. And so in 1925 to 1979, Reza Shah and later his son, Mohammad Reza Shah, modernized Iran. They centralized power, secularized society, and renamed the country Iran in 1935. Now, it became a U.S. ally during the Cold War. Well, why was that? Well, what was happening is they had a prime minister in parliament that was leaning far left. And so they nationalized all the oil industries. And they are starting to move far left in favor of the Soviets and that regime, under Stalin and such. So in 1953, they had a coup. It was Operation Ajax run by the CIA and Operation Boot run by MI6. It was a covert operation orchestrated by both those countries, ours and the UK, to put the Shah in more power. So they took the Shah, who was a constitutional monarch, and elevated his powers. So they got rid of the oil nationalization. They then had a strong ally against the Soviets and the communism domino effect that had taken over Eastern Europe and sort of stopped it there. They had the oil deal, which the U.S. got 50-50 split from, and it strengthened the monarchy. But then comes the Islamic Revolution in 1979. So with all good things, must come to an end. Now, people complained about the Shah because he was too autocratic, some say, okay, and got too much power. So they had widespread protests that overlaid the Shah. Now, get this here. So who were the widespread protests coming from? Well, coming from the clerics and coming from anti-despotic folks, okay? But some of those folks were very far left and far left students. And that's why I'll get into the MEC here in a sec. So, but Khomeini returned from exile in February of 1979 and positioned himself as the undisputed leader, the charisma aspect, right? So you got a charismatic leader hiding under, in my opinion, the veil of religion, and he then appoints a provisional government. Then he has a referendum, okay? 99% of the people voted for it because they supported him, right? But this is how the left does it. They sort of say, here's what I'm looking to do, but then I got you. So after he got the revolutionary vote establishing his bodies and stuff in place, then he created the IRGC, and he created a couple different bodies of revolutionary council. It was dominated by clerics, one to control the national power, and at the local level, they also created revolutionary tribunals, which handled the security, arrests, and other things. So they faked, they got in, they got people bought into it. Then they started to use and abuse of the power to put in place these different structures. To finalize it, then they created the IRGC, okay, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, because they needed a military arm that was beholden to the religious arm, okay, and counterbalancing the regular army. Now, after they consolidated power, now they start to go ahead and do the executions and eliminate the rivals. So from 79 to 82, they took the liberals and moderates and pushed them out first. Then the leftists and the Marxists, okay, like the MEC. The Cultural Revolution, 1980 on, all the universities were purged of the scholars and all the other influence they had there. And then they began the mass executions, okay? Now, just like Stalin and Hitler created the pact and then invaded Poland because they were going to split up Europe, right? Well, Hitler decided that he wanted all the power. So then he turned on the Soviet Union too. Same thing happened in Iran. Is the MEC, which was a bunch of leftists, communist leftists, okay, who were very much supportive of the revolution, and they helped the Shah get into power. But once the Shah got into power, okay, he clashed with the MEC significantly. So he got rid of them, and he started killing them, and so a number of them left the country. But this is where, whether it's communism or Marxism or fascism, those are all the same terms. In this case here, they use the theocracy, religious veil to gain power. And in my book, I talk about the cognitive wars. The ways to seize power are through ideology, communism, Marxism, okay, religion, or issues, transgenderism, social goodwill, racism, other things like that. And so what you're seeing here in Iran, what happened in 79, was the revolution used all this charisma. They used the control of the narrative because they controlled the media. And then they exploited the crisis. And the crisis at the time was when they took over the US Embassy. So they used all those things to consolidate power. Now, what do you see happening here in the United States today? Same thing by the left. Left saw Donald Trump in 2016 and now in 2024 as anathema to where they're going in terms of seizing power. He stopped them from seizing power. And even Trump had said that if he wasn't elected in 2024, we'd be the next Venezuela. And
for sure.
We would be. Okay, we'd be much worse than Great Britain. So now they're using the power and tyranny and the veil of religion to continue to move forward here. So I'll stop there and see if you have some questions, and we'll talk about some more. But this is not something that's new. This is something that's repeated throughout history in multiple different countries.
Well, it is, and I have to confess to you, I needed a little bit of education about the MEC, and I'm glad that I looked at it based on what you were providing in terms of information. They actually, Iraq and Iran were for a long time. We were allies with Iran, and then later allies with Iraq. But the point is that these dissidents, they were partners in the revolution. They get exiled, and then they attack Iran, having joined the other side. So if you're fundamentally and ideologically aligned, how does that happen? And it seems to me this is again nothing but power, right? Is that it?
Yes. Well, why do you have Mandami, who's an Islamic radical, in my opinion,
and a communist,
but also a communist? Okay, well, just stop there for a second. Radical Islamist and a communist. In communism, God is the government. Radical Islam, they said no other God but Allah. Anybody who's non-believer, which means a communist, you need to kill. Okay, but that blatant hypocrisy, no one calls Mandami and those people on that blatant hypocrisy. Now you get Chuck Schumer, Jamie Raskin, Bernie Sanders, Jewish origins, heritage, right?
Yep.
Who are they supporting? A Nazi fascist, Graham Plattner, okay? Mamdani, a communist, an Islamic radical congressman. I can't remember the name of the gentleman that they're putting forth now. Okay, and stuff like
Maine,
that.
I think, is a guy in Maine or something like
Well,
that.
he may be Maine. Yeah, there may be Maine also. I think it's another state, but it maybe it's New Jersey. I think New Jersey. That's it. But regardless, what they're doing is they're taking and they're aligning themselves. Okay, so whether they want to use the veil of religion and Muslim as in Islam, or whether they want to use the ideology, the communism, Marxism, which everybody's know who has a half a brain who studied any history, is been bankrupt, right? With 300 million lives taken over the centuries here in terms of the people following that stuff.
Wow.
And so you have the ideology, you have the ties to religion, but then what happens if they seize power here? Okay, here in Iran, you've seen what they did when they seized power.
Yeah.
And you've seen when the people try to come back, they've slaughtered them.
Just execute them.
Yeah. What's the difference between Iran and the U.S. right now, Todd?
Well, so far we don't have mass executions, but I assume when the useful idiot has served their purpose and the power is seized, then the mass executions happen. But I guess in one sense, maybe I'm wrong in so much we've had a mass depopulation agenda with the shots. So they're depopulating certain sites and making it difficult for conservative-minded people.
Well, so you had the first part exactly spot on. But what stops them from mass executions here in the United States?
Nothing.
It's called lock and load, the Second Amendment.
Well, yes,
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Except that the weaponry that is reserved now for those in power is so much more advanced. It makes me wonder, AI bots and AI robots and war bots. Is our Second Amendment really going to work? I don't know. But anyway, go ahead. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, yeah,
the only reason we're still here is Second Amendment.
Yeah, Second Amendment is what's saving us. And why do you think you've seen here in my home state of Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, the veil of a moderate, okay, the veil of a Christian, the veil of just a average woman, right? A CIA, law enforcement, security. As soon as she gets elected, veil comes off. Okay, Wicked Witch of the North on wheels. She's driving through. She takes away your guns. She wants to add all sorts of taxes, including whether it's gym membership or how many miles you drive your car, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Wants to further control the schools and force the transgender boys into women's bathrooms. Okay. And so those different things people have to pay attention. So now in Iran, what's happening right now is the regime, because what Trump did, was able to circumvent, then destroy a lot of their infrastructure and means and power base. And I think the reason they finally came to the table, of course, is because if Trump would go into the next level here, then they would have lost their power base completely. Right now, they still have a modicum of opportunity for the current regime to stay somewhat alive. But I think that's going to be in potential jeopardy as well here. And so using the veil of religion, they've tried that. It will be interesting to see if the Iranians come back and try to reimpose Sharia law, Islamic radicalism on the country, because the country, and they don't have the same means and stuff. And at the same time, because of that, I'm hoping that through covert and other means, we continue to arm the Iranian people. And so there now, as you've seen, there's a split in the government. So what was delaying the peace agreement was the IRGC faction.
Yeah, who's in charge?
And the political faction. Yeah. So there could be a civil war still within the country. But we'll see who comes up on top here. The benefit to the United States, though, if we stay and keep our hand on the pulse here, and we covertly look to continue to arm the Iranian people, and I'll talk about that failure in a second, and then we have a chance to potentially change the dynamics fully in the Middle East. But for right now, you see with the agreement, the 4 different arms of the Iranian folks, okay, the Hamas, the Yemenis, okay, and the Hutus and stuff like that. All those folks are now being called into question and saying they're not going to fund them anymore as part of this agreement. So we'll see if that holds.
Wow. Well, you said something really important. I'm glad you mentioned the arms, because that is the means by which we at least we can be a threat, even if we can't, overwhelm and force.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. As I understood it, the arms were supposed to be going through former allies, the Kurds, for example. And somehow, to my knowledge, the arms are not getting there. So is that just another group, seizing power over the means by which to control others?
Well, Trump came out on TV and said, we tried to covertly arm the Iranians and by sending the weapons through to the Kurds, but the Kurds kept the weapons.
Yeah.
All right. So, everybody understands now the effort of Operation Epic Fury and what happened and then how we destroyed the nuclear capabilities, their military, their ships, the radar, and everything else. Okay. So now, since we own the airspace, okay, we have the means with control of the airspace to create pockets within the country to do such types of distribution.
To make drops. Yeah.
My question is, and I don't have any insights on this, is are we doing that and are we using those types of windows and creating their own types of windows to not only create certain domains within Iran that we can arm the people, but then sort of set up the opposition elements to further then advance a new revolution for the enabling the Iranian people to take over themselves. I don't know. I'm not impressed with our CIA. I can go into some of that again in a little bit more, but CIA has some. Okay, well, CIA has some tremendous capabilities, tremendous people, but over my 4 decades in the intelligence community, their greatest operations have been against the U.S. government. All right. So they leaked information and predominantly conservative administrations.
Yes.
There's a lot of questions about what happened with JFK. Okay.
Yeah.
The files come out there. But you've seen under Reagan, they leaked different things. Under Bush, they leaked things. He had the black sites. Okay. They leaked things.
Brennan, a commie, put in charge.
Yeah. Brennan was acknowledged communist. Comey over at the FBI, acknowledged communist at one time, also put in charge of the FBI. The CIA, Bob Gates, who was the CIA director, and then he'll become Secretary of Defense. I met him before we went over on our INF treaty inspections with then Judge Webster, the CIA director, a small group of us who were part of those teams. And what was interesting is in his book, From the Shadows, he tells, just as I know, but not everybody knows, people think CIA is conservative. No, CIA's whole heritage is from the liberal Yale, Harvard, and other colleges, which were infested with Soviet communist ideology. All right. Yeah. And they've carried that heritage on, in my opinion, and Bill Gates said that as well. And so, and through my 4 decades here, I've seen him oust Portegas and put in Mike Hayden, okay, General Hayden. I've seen him neuter the stand-up of DHS, Homeland Security, by refusing to send 200 analysts over there from CIA when DHS stood up. And what did Brennan and Tenet do? They created TTIC, the Terrorist Threat Integration Center, the predecessor to the National Counterterrorism Center of today. But they created TTIC as a shell game, okay, so they wouldn't have to send analysts over to DHS and therefore basically neuter DHS Intelligence and Analytical Department from the start. And it's taken DHS decades to recover. And then, of course, we've seen what happened with Brennan, Clapper, and Comey and the weaponization of national security against with the dossier and Hillary campaign against Trump. And then again in 2020 with the fraudulent election. And then, of course, in 2024, they did their best with Kamala Harris, okay, and the brain dead Biden to upset things again. But when you look at what happened in the Iranian situation and look what's been happening in America, there's a lot of parallels there that aren't so obvious to everybody.
Yes.
As I've said, liberals and moderates, they come together. They're used as the sheep to gain the power. Leftists and Marxists align with the radicals in the religious community. And then afterwards, they may kill each other, but for the moment, they're unifying there.
Exactly. They're useful idiots. What about Valerie Jarrett? She was Iranian in Obama's cabinet.
Yes, and so yeah, but her, Obama, I mean, and then Obama, who is running the White House under basically for Biden, right? And so this is where they create these shell games, they create this narrative, and people fall for it. I mean, look at the No
Yeah.
Kings rallies. You know,
Yeah.
right now I'm in Delaware, and it's down the streets for Rehoboth. Well, every Saturday here they have a No Kings rally. And so they get all these folks that go out there and hold up signs and they think they're doing some wonderful demonstration against President Trump. There's no kings. They were living with the king under Biden and Obama,
That's
and they were
right.
living actually despots. Okay. And now they're out there, you know, chanting stuff like that. So there's plenty of sheep to be had, plenty of useful idiots. I call them useless idiots because I don't think they're any useful at all. But in Iran, you've seen what happened with that, with the overthrow of the Shah. Now you see what's happening here in the U.S. You take a look back at the former Soviet Union and how they overtook Eastern Europe. There's similarities and patterns and all this stuff I detail in my book, but we can't forget those things, because if we forget those things, we'll end up repeating it here. And now, last thing mentioned on Iran here is the cognitive aspect. Okay, you have to win over the will, the ideology, and the support of the people. And I think we in the U.S. have done that with what we've undertaken here. But you still have a counter cognitive narrative there with the mullahs and the IRGC and such. Until that cognitive front is addressed and vigorously and consistently, okay, we'll continue to have major problems with the Iranian regime here. And so we have to put some additional pressure on them. We can't just sit back and say, look, now I got the war down here, and we just go collect the nuclear dust. Okay, you have to fundamentally go in there and change the dynamics. And I think President Trump is doing that with the Abraham Accords. Because if you look at Gaza and what happened with Gaza, the only way Gaza was ever going to be resolved is what Trump did with Netanyahu: clean out Gaza, get rid of all the radicalization, re-educate the people, get them de-brainwashed, okay, then bring back new people into Gaza and have a new ideological and political outlook in the region. And this is the Abraham Accords. And so they're taking a cognitive warfare approach in terms of how they're laying out what goes on forward in the Middle East, right? Because even the Arab countries saw that 7 decades of painting Israel as the one bad guy and attacking Israel to keep their power left them susceptible to Islamic radicalists in their own country.
Oh yeah, sure did.
Okay. And so with what happened in Iran, and with Iran also then coming after them, they realized, well, it's probably best to move our whole ideological spectrum back to the center, become more secular, keep our Muslim states, keep our Islamic states, but do it in a secular fashion and join a more peaceful world. And so that's why I think Trump's broader strategy is. And of course, the Democrats are too Democrat to figure that one out.
Or too thirsty for power. Either way, you know, Dubai is a good example of exactly what you're talking about. It's open for business. They don't care whether you're Christian or Muslim or Jewish or otherwise. You run into everybody there. It's flourishing in the middle of the freaking desert. And it's flourishing for that reason. Right? It's open for business. There aren't problems. It's safe. It's unbelievably safe, and taxes and regulation are low. So anyway, I'm a fan of Dubai and what the Emiratis did with that. But I want you to help me understand the asymmetrical command and control that the Persians, I would prefer to call them Persians because Iran, I think, is a construct, that they employed, such that you take out the head of the snake and the next head of the snake and the next head of the snake, had no real effect on their ability to wage war. It seemed to me they were so decentralized and so asymmetrical that they really put up a hell of a fight. How did that work, if you happen to know?
Well, I don't have a great detail in it, but just from my assessment of watching what's happened unfold, just from the same things you've seen, is they realized that the U.S. or some other power could come in and strike them. Okay, and so with the RGC, just like the Soviets had the old Comintern, the political czars and stuff like that. They set the structure up so that if one part of the organism was chopped off, okay, they could regrow it in another part. So they made sure they put in radical affiliate, ideological affiliates in these different IRGC centers. They stocked them with, of course, the simpler types of weapons, the UAVs and such, okay, asymmetric type warfare. You've also seen them try to obtain the biological, chemical aspects, right? And so
Yes.
this is how they disperse themselves. And so I think it has been very effective. It's kept them going. But just like at a certain time, they still need a certain amount of critical mass, like money, right? They need resources, and they need resources and money to continue. So just because they have the people out there, they can't do that. But take a look at the Democratic Party and what they've done the same thing here. Okay.
Oh yeah.
They've taken and put in political affiliates in all these different spots. That's the same thing they've done in our intelligence community over 3 decades with the Brennans, Clappers, Comeys, and they've layered them. And so what I've tried to tell the Trump administration back from 2016 on and before, and more recently 2024, and a couple of pieces I've sent to some people there, is you have to understand that layering in effect, and that you have to completely overhaul the intelligence community, including the Department of State, Department of Defense, Department of Energy, because they've embedded these affiliates throughout. And so you have to change the HR system. You have to change it to one of meritocracy, blind resumes. You have to do a complete restructure in supporting cognitive warfare, and move from these titanium cylinders of sub-excellence to more fully integrated centers capable of regional focus and regional operational cognitive warfare. Because what we do in lieu of that, as we've seen in Iran, we've seen other places like that, even in England and stuff, we cede then that cognitive war to our adversaries, because they then define their priorities, their objectives, and execute them. We just sit back, react.
Yeah, every time.
So we can no longer react, and that's a big portion of my book, is you can no longer react. Okay, you have to be proactive. You have to have predictive analysis. You have to get out of the, and so if you're not defining what you want your country's objectives to be by each region in the world for the future, you defer to your adversaries to let them define it for you. And that's sort of where we're at now.
It is exactly where we're at. And I'm just, before Jamie's going to address, because I know she's got some questions, but I, in light of what you said, and it seems so obvious to me that the Ivy League schools that produce this kind of ideology goes back a long time. So I guess cognitive warfare really begins at school, right? From kindergarten all the way through. And I've noticed that the further people go in their educational system, the more that bend goes. How is it we interrupt that way of thinking? Because it's destructive.
Well, get rid of the teachers' unions. They've destroyed American education. Put back civics into all of our schools and teachings. Get rid of the indoctrination crap, the DEI, CRT, and other type of crap they put in. And so, but we really need to remake our preschool through graduation, the whole thing. As you've seen, the Ivy League schools have become leftist indoctrination centers. Okay.
Yes.
And even when I was at CU in Boulder, I call it Berkeley, the Midwest. Okay.
Yep.
It was rampant. And so we cannot afford, Lenin said, give me one generation of students and I'll change the world. Well, the left understands that. They also take over the teachers' unions, the school councils, the city councils and stuff. And so people need to get involved, get in the city council, get on the students' councils and the school councils and stuff like that. You have to get involved to change this dynamic. Because as I say in my book, it's the critical but boring stuff which matters most. The policies, the councils, the city councils, the school boards, okay, even your HOAs, okay. That's where you change the dynamics. That's where you feed things in the policy changes of what you teach your kids. But Americans forget about that. They defer to someone else because we're always too busy. And that's why the left has, over decades here, usurped the power from the city councils to the school boards on out.
Man, they have been so effective. It's absolutely amazing. But you're right. Doctrine of the lesser magistrates is the way we take our country back. Jamie, undoubtedly, you've got some insights and questions.
My mind is like blowing right now. There, I don't know how you keep it all and sleep at night. You know so much, but with all that you know, I think that what your solutions are correct. However, I think there needs to be a roadmap, because it seems like when people step up, they get into politics, they try to do something, all of a sudden they get doxxed, and then they get threatened, and then they step down, and then nobody else wants to step into place. And I see that happening in New York here. So there needs to be a roadmap. Like, start with prosecutions, lock people up, and then people will be deterred from doing other things. So I don't know if you have that roadmap mapped out, but I think that might be a really good thing to get to the people that are listening to our show today, and to people in the White House, because Trump only has, what, 2.5 years left, and we need to keep going. So.
Yeah, so in my book I talk about that. You need a strategy, you need a plan, and when I talk about strategy, you need a 50 to 100 year strategy. And then I talk about how you have to walk that back down to say, okay, in this long-term strategy, what are your primary objectives globally and domestically? And then based on that, you walk that back, say, what do I need to do by when, and in parallel and in sequence to make that happen? The problem with the Republicans, as you saw here, and conservatives, okay, remember the 2024 election. Oh, the Democratic Party is dead, they're dying, blah, 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 okay? Stupid people, okay? They do this every election. And then now it's coming up on midterms, okay? And we have some grave concerns about whether they're going to win the midterms. Luckily, there were some smart people in the Republican Party, because they did the redistricting, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, and we have Trump, okay, who's a master at economics and other strategies, and also at cognitive warfare and putting things in place. But Trump's only going to be here, as Jamie says, another 2.5 years. Okay, we have to think long term. Do you remember Newt Gingrich and the Contract for America?
Yeah.
Well,
very effective.
When I left the Air Force, I worked in private sector for a few years. I volunteered up at the National Policy Forum, an adjunct to the RNC. And Newt put together a brilliant strategy and a plan, communications plan, and other things to then how they lay out contract with America, save the narrative, and bring it forward. We have to do the same thing now, but a much longer period of time, because as we said up front, Todd, is Democrats and the left's plan, and they have a strategy. It's long term. They execute methodically. So when they get a setback, they can live with the setback, but then they come back again, okay? And they move the ball. And that's why over the last 6 decades, you've seen 30+ million illegals come in the country. You've seen the dynamics move from a center-right Democratic Party to a far-left Democratic Party, okay? Because they understood what they needed to do one step at a time to seize that power. That's cognitive warfare. We're sitting and spinning on our thumbs right now, and I think I'm very concerned. Jamie, yes, I think a lot about different things, but every night about 2 a.m, I wake up and I start thinking, what the hell else can I do to get this set right? Because we cannot sleep. I cannot sleep at night because we are in grave danger still.
God, is that the truth?
What do you predict in the near future? Any good, hopeful things besides all this, oh my gosh, negative stuff that we have going on? Any good stuff you see? How
Yes, I think Trump is giving us an exemplar. He's given us an example of how to lead. He's given an example how to then converse and deal with cognitive warfare as a narrative. Okay. He was very proactive in his first campaign. Little Marco, Lion Ted. Okay. He painted his opponents. As soon as I see that, I said, this guy's going to win. Okay. In 2020, he was outmaneuvered because the Democrats had already preset the stage for the fraudulent election. Okay. And they preset the stage with the January 6th narrative.
Right.
They controlled the narrative. So they controlled the narrative, they controlled the fraudulent election, and they conducted a coup, basically. But in 2024, Trump came back, okay? And so now he's on a good path. With the redistricting, I think there's a good chance, now with the Iranian solution here, that the Republicans went on to keep the House, expanded the Senate. But now what we have to do is we have to get rid of the deep embeds in the rhinos in the Senate and the House. We have to neutralize John Thune. Lady Graham and others and get rid of them. You have to put some people in there. I mean, Mitch McConnell can't leave fast enough. He's ill. Please just resign and pass your buck to someone but new. The SAVE Act has to be passed, and Trump's still pushing that. And so there's some good news here, but there's a long haul, because if we do not do the SAVE Act and other things, the Democrats will expand DC and Puerto Rico states. They will expand the Supreme Court. And then you watch what happened in Britain and in Venezuela. We'll lose our Second Amendment, First Amendment, and other types of rights. But right now we're on a good path, but we have to have some good, strong leaders to continue that.
Yeah, boy, is that the truth. No truer words are said. And I hope that Mondami listens to this and understands he's a useful idiot. They're going to be rid of you, dude. After you destroy New York, Jamie happens to be there. God bless you. And this is fabulous. I so enjoy our conversation because I get a tremendous education every time. And I hope people will listen. How do they best follow you? Where do they get your book? What do we do to support you?
But my book's on Amazon, The Cognitive War. Just Google The Cognitive War. And as Jamie's put up on the bottom of the screen there, I have put everything out in my blog as well. And I'm on Truth Social, I'm on CloutHub, I'm Substack. So, reach out, read the stuff, because I'm doing this because I believe in the country. I believe in God, country, and family. Okay. Not government. Government has to be significantly downsized. And I think in the last 2 years, hopefully Trump hacks the hell out of it. But I very much appreciate you having me on, Todd, and Jamie is always great.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, really our pleasure, Ed. Thanks for being here, and thanks for inspiring me and others. Undoubtedly, there's really good people that watch this, and it's amazing to watch how ideas presented here seem to percolate into policy. I don't know how it works, but it does. So God bless you, brother. Thanks for being here. Always a pleasure. We'll get you back.
Take care.
All right, so long.